I gotta be careful not to sound condescending right here. It's really not my intention. But I have a question for you, and now you're in charge of this video. Do you really, truly, honestly want to be a pool player? Or are you just hanging out with your friends and drinking beer and trying to pick up easy women? Give that some thought, just for a little bit. I'm going to give you a break right here, and when we come back, I hope you have an answer to that question. Do you really want to be a pool player? It's really not an easy question, and it directly associates with the mental side of your pool game. I know that there's, just dime a dozen players that are going to stumble in this video and I just trying to impress my friends and girlfriends, and there's nothing wrong with that. Go out and have some fun. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using pool to just get out of the house and socialize and have a life. But this video is really not made for you, and neither are all my other videos. I tend to gear my mind to connect with the very few players running around YouTube and the rest of the internet that really, truly, honestly want to be great professional pool players. So that's the question. If you're here, then this video is geared toward you. If you answered yes, I really, truly want to be a pool player and I don't know where to go from here, I'm talking to you. At the end of this video, there's like a 5 or 6 minute file of me just yakking about my biggest inspiration in pool, Buddy Hall. It's really irrelevant to this entire video. It's just I wanted to put it somewhere, so I put it at the end of this video. Go ahead and tune out if you're not into it, but if you want to hear it, it is there for y'all. When you look at a rack like this after the break, it's important to analyze your own thought process as you look at this rack. One of the first things I notice is that 6 ball. On the long side of the 6 ball, it's almost impossible to get the right shape on the 6 to shoot it in this corner and get back on the 7 ball, so it becomes a little bit discouraging. If we look at the 2 ball, you can see the 3 balls in front of it to shoot it in that corner, and our minds immediately go to what's the closest pocket to the object's ball, and when we see an obstruction in front of it, we get a little bit discouraged, and our minds often get lazy right at that point, and we say, well, this is just too complicated to figure out, so I'm just going to shoot 1 or 2 balls at a time, and I'm not going to give it a whole lot of thought. I'll just deal with what comes up after I make the first ball. And if you're doing that, you're not alone. Most pool players do that, but most pool players don't become professional pool players. So you need to stop right there and realize that you're creating a very destructive mental habit that results in just pure laziness. You can't put this off. You have to deal with it before you get down and shoot this 1 ball. So let's deal with it. So it's time to take a better look at the 2, 3, and the 4. And a lot of guys would make the decision right here before shooting this 1 ball to get back down underneath the 2 to either shoot it in the side right here or in the corner down here. And All that's well and good until you realize that you're on the 3 ball now, and it's going to be virtually impossible to get on the 4. And a lot of instructional people and lesson givers, whatever you want to call these guys, they say to think 3 balls ahead, and I call bullshit right here. A bare minimum is to think 4 balls ahead, and that is the minimum. So you need to think about this 4 ball when you're shooting this 1, because you're going to get in a position in a 2 that limits your options of getting on the 3, and often destroys your options of shooting that 3 and getting easy position on the 4 ball. So let's take a better look at the 2 ball. And that 3 ball is actually not blocking the 2 ball as long as we stay under on the left hand side of the 3 ball. And if we get a bit of an angle on the 2 ball, a little bit to the left hand side, it's absolutely perfect position to stun draw that 2 ball, get perfect shape on the 3 to get back on this 4 ball very easily. So let's take a look at that mental picture instead of throwing away that cue ball when you shoot the 1 ball. If you don't know what that line is going through the 2 ball, on the top right hand corner of your screen, I'm going to link you to my last video titled Understanding the Line. Just go back and watch this or that, and then come back and watch this when you're done that, and that'll make sense of that line. I can't keep re-explaining the same thing over and over and over again every time I make a video. Instead of trying to get back up under that 2, let's just keep everything simple and deal with the fact that we don't need to be straight in on the 2. In fact, we don't want to be straight in on the 2. We want to come up on the left hand side of that line, so we can easily get on from the 3 to the 4. We can get on the 3 to easily get to the 4 ball. And that's the agenda, to make this game a whole lot easier than what's going on in our minds, which automatically makes things complicated, and then we give up and just shoot 1 ball at a time, and we get in big trouble. So hang in there and take your thoughts one more step before throwing it all away. Did you catch any of that? It is absolutely amazing how fast the human mind works when we start giving it the right habits. So after I make that 1 ball, I start walking to behind the 2 ball to take care of the 2 ball. But meanwhile, I am figuring out the 2 ball, the 3 ball, the 4 ball, the 5 ball, and even the 6 ball, all in a split second. Let's replay that in slow motion, and you'll actually see my body trying to keep up with my mind as I point around the pool table. You can't see exactly what's going on with this shot because I'm in the way. This is why I'm ultimately going to get to the place where there's 4 cameras on the table, even if I have to put a pool table in my house. This way this won't happen anymore. But I'm just stun drawing this shot. There's a little bit of a left-hand cut on this, just a little bit of an angle, and that should give us the perfect angle to just stun draw this out for the right angle on the 3 to get to the 4, and from there back on the 5 ball. There's not a whole lot of room for error here, so you're going to have to be careful. You're putting top right. Well, you have to put top on this pretty much because that 9 ball has me jacked up So I'm putting top right on this and spinning down on the 4 ball, but don't forget we have to get back on the 5, and you don't want to get straight in on this 4 ball. You could go under that 4 ball line and get a good angle on the 5, but I decided to stay on top of it because it gives you more margin of error if you stay on top than if you do going under it and stun drawing it back up on the 5. And we need a right angle on the 5 to get on the short side of that 6, and I'll explain that when we get to it. You can see me stop here and take a look at where I want to be on this 6 ball. I decided long ago, before this game, even before I even shot the 1 ball, that getting on the long side of that 6 ball or the right side of that 6 ball was just not going to work, so I'm going to have to come up on the short side of the 6 ball. So before you shoot this 4 ball, you need to decide how you're going to get on the short side of the 6 ball and what angle you need on the 5 ball to achieve that goal. So before shooting the 4, decide on the line on the 5 and exactly where you want to be relative to that line to draw back off that 5 and bend the cue ball back to the short side of the 6 ball, and you should see yourself doing something very, very similar, if not exactly like this. Take note of the 5 ball line and realize that if you get below that line or on the right side of that line, if you're looking straight down the 5 ball, you're going to have a really, really hard time getting on this 6 ball, especially on the short side of the 6 ball. So it's absolutely imperative that you stay below that 5 ball line or on top of it, looking at it from the camera angle. You don't even want to get on the line. You want to come up short of that line, and that should give you the perfect angle as long as you don't stay too far below the line. A couple inches to a foot will work on this 5 ball shot, and my intention is to draw the cue ball off the 5 ball and come down up on the short side of that 6, and that should make it simple to get on the 7 if we do that. I have the angles that I want on the 5 to bend the cue ball back on the short side of the 6. So as you go about seeing this in your mind and doing it right, understand that now it's all about the 8 ball and getting right on the 6 so you can get right on the 7 in order to make it easy to get on that 8 ball. And you'll see I go a little bit too long when I shoot this 5 and I go past my point of aim. But just keep your head here. Here's where a lot of people make a mistake. Amateur players tend to panic here because, I mean, look where the cue ball is. It's on the rail. You can't use bottom to manipulate this cue ball. And all you can really do is put top or top left or top right on it. And they wind up doing crazy stuff because, I mean, look where the 7 ball is. How are you going to get on the 7 from where this cue ball is and where the 6 ball is? You're really, what they think they're in big time trouble here, but they're really not. It looks a whole lot worse than what it is. So let's take a look at the line on the 7 ball and understand that we're not trying to get on that line. We need an angle on the 7 ball to get back on the 8 in order to get the right position on the 9. And all your thinking is done once you get to the 9, from the 6 to the 9. That's 4 balls ahead. We're not playing 10 balls, so that's it. You don't have to brainstorm anymore unless you make a really, really bad mistake at this point. And like I said, bad mistakes are very, very common at this point in the game and this position. And what they'll try to do is slam this 6 ball and try to go all the way down table and back up table. And they'll just make something that looks bad into something horrible and something they can't get out of. Um, let's take a look at the right way to do this. I've determined that the cue ball is not going to hit the 7 ball, so we don't have to worry about that. So if we get the cue ball right up there by the side pocket, and at that angle for the 7 ball, is that a good enough angle for you to get from the 7 to the right position on the 8 to get back on the 9? If you said yes, then that's the way to shoot it. Just softly, just a little bit of top. Well, you have to put top on it. Center ball and just roll up on this cue ball softly. Don't let the cue ball get away from you. Be careful not to scratch and go ahead and shoot it. Picture yourself doing it before you get down on the shot, and before you even do that, you're going to have to decide what pocket you want to shoot that 9 ball in, and it's either going to be this pocket or that pocket, and you're either going to have to play this line or that line. I decide to get on top of the 8 ball line so I can play the 9 ball in that pocket right there. When I shot that 7 ball, I didn't get the right angle off that bottom rail, or the angle that I wanted to get on more on the right hand side of this 8 ball in order to play the line to shoot that 9 ball down there in the bottom right hand corner. I'm a little bit more full here than I want to be. I still have a slight left hand cut, but a lot of this cue ball is going to be hitting this 8 ball. So it's really going to be tough to play that line on that line that I wanted on the 9 ball. And in order to accomplish that, I'm going to have to spin the hell out of this cue ball. It's going to be a little bit tough to continue to play that line, but I'm insistent on it, and it just does not work out. So what happened there was that the 8 ball took all the speed and all the English off the cue ball, and it just didn't have anything left when it hit that top rail, and it was nowhere near having the momentum to get to that second rail. If I could have got to that second rail, I would have been fine. I would have had a long shot on the 9 ball, but I would have still been in line and would have been straight in and not a problem. But now I have a really, really difficult shot on this 9, and you're just going to have to set your mind to it. Take what you can get and do the best you can with it. If you dog this shot, try not to feel too bad because it's a very difficult shot. Most guys would just use center ball here, and I highly recommend using just center ball. But you'll see me put a little bit of bottom off this ball and draw it to that left-hand rail. And unless you're really, really confident with this shot, just put center ball in it, and just, that bottom rail will stop the cue ball from getting away from you. Yeah, you can see me drawing it right there. That's not wise, but that's what I did. I really don't like to finish a rack like that. Everything was fine, and so I shot that 7 ball and got pretty bad on that 8 ball. But, I mean, whatever. Let's go ahead and watch it from start to finish without without the cuts and without all the graphics and without me talking. And because there's enough talk at the very end of this video, yeah, it's kind of a long podcast, but you know, if you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. First, we're going to watch this rack. Peace, guys. Thank you for tuning in. You're going way back to the 70s, and that's a bit before my time, but during that era, there were thousands of road players, but most of them were just nickel and dime and hustling in the old-fashioned way and sneaking up on drunks and stuff like that. And they could go from town to town and do okay and feed themselves and get enough gas the next time. But what happened in the 70s was all this materialistic stuff came around, and businesses all across America realized that they could make a whole lot more money by gouging their customers. So the price of everything just skyrocketed. And life became all about how much money you have instead of, peace, love, and understanding and all that stuff of the 60s. So, and the price of gas skyrocketed, motel rooms skyrocketed, food, restaurants and stuff like that, all the prices of everything just went through the roof. And what was happening was those nickel and dime hustlers, they couldn't survive anymore. They just couldn't do it. So people had to up their game, and they had to do it fast. They had to get, just better than great. They had to be the best of what was left. And so you had a few players that were able to do that. Danny Medina and Buddy Hall, Benny Conway, guys like that. Some of them just upped their game, and instead of going, from town to town, hustling chumps, they started matching up for big money. So it was like survival of the fittest. It was more like a gunfight, and may the best win, and the very best will be whoever's left. So there was still a lot of action, but it was big time action. It was no longer nickel and dime, and, so you had people like Buddy Hall coming into town and willing to play anybody that the town could put up for $10,000 or $20,000. And but again, all that was before my time. Then the '80s started coming around, and now I'm in my teenage years. I'm still in school, but I'm not showing a whole lot of interest in school. I'm showing more interest in music and pool. I'm still looking to be free. And during that time, it was Buddy Hall who had the most influence on me. I sat there in person watching him just come in through the big money and just not miss, just run rag after rag like a machine. And that's who I set my game, my competitor, my game after. That's who I wanted to be, like that really big gun, this big Texan, coming into the big city, and it just took a lot of balls, and then you had the mob back, and players that they're shipping in from all over the damn world to play Buddy. And he's just sitting there patiently waiting. Give me your best, I'll play anybody. That was just incredible to me. That took the courage of a lion to be willing to do that, and win. Just like there's no rattling that guy. It was just solid as a rock, just quiet and huge. Physically huge, and just putting his money or his backers' money, where it mattered. And a lot of other people are just talking, trying to negotiate, and everybody would just sit there and wait. And then when the time is right, just not this. That was just so cool to me, and that's the guy I wanted to be, like the big money, playing the best players and beat them. And then in the 80s and 90s, you still had road players, but they were more focused to these tournaments, and it wasn't cutting it because the prices of everything kept rising. Road expenses just kept rising. And so they're playing in these little tournaments from town, regional tournaments, paying $2,000 to the winner. And it just wasn't enough. You have 128 guys entering this tournament. 50 or 60 of them are legitimate road players and bar table players and stuff like that. But you only have one guy making $2,000. And when you're on the road, $2,000 you'd be lucky to last 2 or 3 days with it. It's not even going to get you to the next town. So they would take action when they could get action. Shannon Dalton came in that year, Eugene Browning, and just a ton of road players, but they just couldn't sneak up on the action anymore. All that, the easy action, there's just, it would happen once in a while, but it's just a matter of luck that some drunk is going to drink too much and blow his paycheck. If that happens, but you couldn't count on it anymore. You couldn't just blindly go out on the road on your last $100 and turn it into thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's what happened. But all through everything, it was Buddy's game and Buddy's courage that influenced my game the most. There's no doubt about it.